Welcome back to the final part of our Azure logging and monitoring series. For the final part of the series, we will look at how we can visualize our metrics in a way that's meaningful, analyze what we have for better future performance, as well as set up alerts that can be used to bring important things happening in our solution to light. Visualizations such as charts and tables are effective tools for summarizing monitoring data and presenting it to different audiences. Azure Monitor has its own features for visualizing monitoring data and leveraging other Azure services for publishing it to different audiences. So as mentioned, you can send platform logs to one or more of the following destinations. One of them is Log Analytics Workspace, which we will talk about later on in depth. In Log Analytics Workspace, you can analyze the logs of all your Azure resources together and take advantage of all the features available to Azure Monitor logs, including log queries and log alerts. The second location you can send to is Event Hub. You can send platform log data outside of Azure, for example, to a third-party SIEM or custom telemetry platform. The third location you can send to is Azure Storage, where you can archive the logs for audit or backup. Now that we have a way to store all of this data, let's begin seeing what are the ways that we can view it. Azure dashboards allow you to combine different kinds of data, including both metrics and logs, into a single pane in the Azure portal. If you'd like, you can share the dashboard with other Azure users. Elements throughout Azure Monitor can be added to an Azure dashboard in addition to the output of any log query or metrics chart. For example, you could create a dashboard that combines tiles to show a graph of metrics, a table of activity logs, a usage chart from application insights, and the output of a log query. Power BI is a business analytics service that provides interactive visualizations across a variety of data sources and is an effective means of making data available to others within and outside your organization. You can configure Power BI to automatically import log data from Azure Monitor to take advantage of these additional visualizations. You could combine data from many sources, including analytics queries from Azure Application Insights. Workbooks provide a flexible canvas for data analysis and the creation of rich visual reports within the Azure portal. They allow you to tap into multiple data resources from across Azure and combine them into a unified interactive experience. Workbooks can query data from multiple sources within Azure. Authors of workbooks can transform this data to provide insight into the availability, performance, usage, and overall health of the underlying components. For instance, analyzing performance logs from virtual machines to identify high CPU or low memory instances and displaying the results as a grid in an interactive report. Workbooks can be especially beneficial to ISVs, so there are many ways ISVs deploy their apps. In the managed app scenario, for instance, ISV resources are in an end customer subscription via Azure Managed Application Deployment model. One of the resources is Log Analytics Workspace that collects data from the VMs, AKS, and other resources that make up the managed applications. ISVs have access to these resources via the Managed Resource Group, with either owner or contributor access. But as an ISV, you'd want to see a single view of all your customers' tenants. If you want to see that single view across all tenants, workbooks are the most elegant way to create that single pane of glass right now in the portal. Alternatively, you can also use Grafana for visualizations outside of the portal. Azure Monitor Metrics Explorer is a component of the Microsoft Azure portal that allows plotting charts, visually correlated trends, and investigating spikes and dips in metric values. Use the Metrics Explorer to investigate the health and utilization of your resources. So we've talked about visualizing our metrics. Now we move on to how we can analyze our metrics to extract meaningful insight. Now, I briefly mentioned log analytics throughout the presentation, so let's take a moment to talk about what it really is. Log analytics is a tool in the Azure portal to edit and run log queries from data collected by Azure Monitor logs and interactively analyze their results. You can use log analytics queries to retrieve records matching particular criteria, identify trends, analyze patterns, and provide a variety of insights into your data. In order to collect data, you need to create a log analytics workspace. These log analytics workspaces are unique environments for data collected by Azure Monitor. Each workspace has its own data repository and configuration, and data sources and solutions are configured to store their data in a particular workspace. If you're familiar with the Azure Data Explorer web UI, then Log Analytics should look familiar. That's because it's built on top of Azure Data Explorer and uses the same Kusto query language. Log Analytics adds features specific to Azure Monitor, such as filtering by time range and the ability to create an alert rule from a query. Both tools include an Explorer that lets you scan through the structure of available tables, but the Azure Data Explorer web UI primarily works with tables in Azure Data Explorer databases, while Log Analytics works with tables in a Log Analytics workspace. So to utilize Log Analytics workspaces, you mainly use a Kusto query language. So a Kusto query is a read-only request to process data and return results. The request is stated in plain text using a data flow model designed to make the syntax easy to read, author, and automate. The query uses schema entities that are organized in a hierarchy similar to SQL's, databases, tables, and columns. More help can be found in the documentation linked in the references. As previously mentioned, virtual machines and other compute resources require an agent to collect monitoring data required to measure the performance and availability of their guest operating system and workloads. The Log Analytic agent collects monitoring data from the guest operating system and workloads of virtual machines in Azure, other cloud providers, and on-premises. It sends data to a Log Analytics workspace. The Log Analytics agent is the same agent used by the System Center Operations Manager, and you can multi-home agent computers to communicate with your management group and Azure Monitor simultaneously. Use the Log Analytics agent if you need to collect logs and performance data from Azure virtual machines or hybrid machines outside of Azure, or send data to a Log Analytics workspace to take advantage of features supported by Azure Monitor logs, such as log queries, or if you use different solutions to monitor a particular service or application. The Log Analytics agent comes with limitations, however. These limitations include the fact that you cannot send data directly to Azure Monitor Metrics, Azure Storage, or Event Hubs. It is also difficult to configure unique monitoring definitions for individual agents. In addition, it is difficult to manage at scale since each virtual machine has a unique configuration. Instead, you would want to use Azure Monitor for VMs, as previously mentioned, which allows you to monitor your machines at scale and monitors their process and dependencies on other resources and external processes. Now we move on to the final part of our presentation. For the final part of our presentation, we will go over how to set up alerts for monitoring our resources. We begin with action groups. An action group is a collection of notification preferences defined by the owner of an Azure subscription. Azure Monitor and Service Health Alerts use action groups to notify users that an alert has been triggered. Various alerts may use the same action group or different action groups depending on the user's requirements. You may configure up to 2,000 action groups in a subscription. You can configure Service Health Alerts to notify you by text message or email when an Azure service incident affects you. Then we have metric alerts. These provide a way to get notified when one of your metrics crosses a threshold. Metric alerts work on a range of multidimensional platform metrics, custom metrics, application insights, and standard custom metrics. Finally, we have log alerts. Log alerts allow users to use a log analytics query to evaluate resource logs every set frequency and fire an alert based on the results. Rules can trigger one or more actions using action groups. Log alerts run queries on log analytics data. First, you should start collecting the log data and query the log data for issues. You can use the alert query example topics in the log analytics to understand what you can discover or start writing your own query. These are some of the common scenarios where a log alert is useful. Now, we've gone over a lot this last hour, but to summarize, Azure Monitor is a complete platform to give you insights on your solutions built in the cloud. It goes beyond just data collection and allows you to analyze and visualize what you've collected. Traditionally, you had specialized roles and special monitoring tools. App developers used APMs to look at app runtime issues. IT ops used infrastructure monitoring tools to take care of infrastructure issues, and network admins used packet capture and other network monitoring tools. With the introduction of DevOps and SRE culture, the responsibilities are changing. Also, with new paradigms such as microservices and containers, the traditional division of infrastructure, app, and network is breaking down. With Azure Monitor, our goal is to help you accelerate this transformation to a DevOps SRE culture by giving you a full stack monitoring solution that gives you visibility across app, infra, and network, and works equally well with new technologies and legacy applications. I will leave you today with some final words of advice when setting up your monitoring strategy. Always have a plan and think carefully about what it is you want to monitor and who should be monitoring it. Make use of automation and don't merely copy your on-prem practices. We also have some best practices that are key to keep in mind as you build out your solution. Thank you all for joining me for this Azure Logging and Monitoring series. This is a high-level overview of what we have to offer in Azure for logging and monitoring platform end-to-end. I hope you are exposed to some novel services and concepts that you can dive into to get started. Don't forget to check out the learning resources available for the Azure Monitor platform. I hope this can facilitate the discussion on how you can incorporate Azure Monitor into your existing solutions.